Good afternoon, all. I welcome everybody on the dais, off the dais, and all the online participants to this ninth study circle meeting. The topic for the today's study circle meeting is very unique. You might have uh, got surprised by why the amendments pertaining to the years 2020, 21, and 21, 22. Because as we are aware that 2017, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, all those are time barring years, especially under section 73. And now what we are going to face is the further years of 2020 and 21, 22. So that's why the president has insisted on this topic, and here we are, and we are more than able speaker for today's study circle meeting, CA Janak Vaghani sir. So I welcome everybody, and I would request President Sri Praveen Shinde sir to give his opening remarks on today's study circle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected today's speakers, our senior members, CA Janak Vaghani, my Joint Secretary, Advocate Vinod Maske, CA Jatin Chheda, and the convener on the dais, Aditya Sima Pradeep. All the dignitaries present over here on physical platform and on virtual platform. I, on behalf of recognize the presence of CA Govind Goel, the past president of BCA and WRC chairman, and the holding also Malad Chamber chairman presidency. I welcome you, sir, on the GSTPAM platform. Once again, I feel privileged to welcome you all on 9th study circle meeting of the GSTPAM. The today's topics, as my convener Aditya Sima Pradeep told that this is why this is important topics. Janak Bhai, when I discussed the with the Janak Bhai, when we met at the commissioner office while giving the representation to CST office, that time he assured me, Praveen, I will take these topics on the coming study circle meeting. This is very important topics aspect to assessment of the year 2021, 21, 22. There's so many recent amendments जो है वो 20, 21, 22 असेसमेंट्स के लिए यूजफुल से उसके ऊपर मैं बोलूंगा. So regarding the Janak Bhai, he is our mentor. I say that because he is always ready to give the good suggestion, valuable supports and guidance to me in my presidency tenure. He has always give good suggestion in the finance committee as well as the guidance cell committee, Elena, regarding the representation. When any issue arises to draft the representation, he is always ready to guide us on the various issues which will represent to government. Thank you, Janak Bhai, for your spending time for today's study circle meeting. Regarding the GSTPAM activities, the GST coaching class in the Marathi and Gujarati and English language all are over. Income tax coaching class now we at the end of this session, income tax coaching class. Around 106 participants we enrolled for the income tax. This is the first time, second time in the history of the association we holding the income tax coaching class for the beginners. And the regarding intensive also lectures are under pipelines. Outstation seminar. We'll plan to organize the outstation seminar in the coming April and May in Sangli and Kolhapur, Satara districts. Regarding an international RRC, the international RRC already full. The Singapore, Malaysia. I thanks all the delegates who are enrolled for the international RRC. Around 65 delegates enrolled for the international RRC. Regarding the non-residential reparation course, in this month only, on 28th and 29th April 2024, will planning to organize the non-residential course at Nasik. I appeal all the members, those who are not enrolled for the NRC, please enroll for NRC and get the benefits of the same. Regarding the representation, I tell you all the districts representative and district members of GSTPAM and as well as Mumbai that the profession tax PTRC filing dates because of the code of conduct. State Department has not issued the notification, but they are promises. Commissioners that day, Mr. Vaghani was there. My Sunil Joshi, Joint Secretary, Joint Convener was there at the submission of the representation to the State Commissioner. That time, we had put 3 issues before them. One of the PTRC filing date extension. Second, decentralization of the VAT registration. And third is the due date of the April, March 3B and the April 3B. The date will be the 20th April and 20th May. On that day, election is there in the Maharashtra state. So on 3 points, Commissioner accepted our first 2 points: extension of the PTRC and the decentralization of the VAT registration. Point regarding the PTRC extension, yet they have not come out with the notification. The files extension file आजही ती मंत्रालयात आहे फाईल आणि एक्सटेन्शन ते इलेक्शनचा कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट असल्या कारणाने एक्सटेन्शनचं नोटिफिकेशन कसं काढायचं आज पण कालचं पण मी बोलणार आहे त्याच्यावरती. जी GSTR 1 ची कालची डेट होती त्याचंही रिप्रेझेंटेशन GSTPM नेच केलं आणि त्याची आजची डेट आली एक्सटेन्शन 1 दिवस. मी खरोखर त्याचा मी कौतुक करेन आदित्य सीमा माझे कन्व्हेनर आणि सुनील जोशी आणि लगेचच कालचा जो पॉइंट होता GSTR 1 चा इश्यू जो GSTR 1 काल जात नव्हते साईट बंद होत होती स्लो होती तर लगेच एक्सटेन्शन ते आपल्याला मिळालं पण ते पण त्याचं नोटिफिकेशन नाही आलं. न्यूज आणि अपडेट्स आलेत म्हणजे कोड ऑफ कंडक्टचा विषय असावा म्हणून मला असं वाटतं की त्यांनीही नोटिफिकेशन काढलं नाही. त्याचप्रमाणे PTRCचं पण एक्सटेन्शनचं त्यांनी फाईल मंत्रालयात पाठवलं तरी पण 15 तारखेला मी सगळ्यांना विनंती करेन ज्यांचेही कोणाचे PTRCचे रिटर्न राहिलेले आहेत पेमेंटही राहिलेले आहेत तरी रिटर्न जात आहेत. पेमेंटही ज्यांचे बाकी असतील तर त्यांनी PTRCचे रिटर्न फाईल करावे आणि लेट फी जी आहे ती तुम्हाला लेट फी भरावी लागणार नाही. 15 तारखेपर्यंत त्यांनी अनऑफिशियली आपल्याला तोंडी सांगितलेलं आहे की तुम्ही 15 तारखेपर्यंत आम्ही हे पोर्टल ओपन ठेवणार आहोत तर PTRCचे रिटर्न 15 एप्रिल पर्यंत 22, 23, 24 फाईल करा. त्यासाठी कुठची पेनल्टी लागणार नाही आणि पहिल्यांची कंडिशन अशी होती की 31 मार्चच्या अगोदर तुम्ही पेमेंट असतील तर आमचे रिटर्न भरले जातील पण तसं काही नाहीये बरोबर ना विनोद. रिटर्न जात आहेत जरी 31 तारखेनंतर जरी पेमेंट असतील तरी रिटर्न जात आहेत तर ते एक आहे अचिव्हमेंट आपल्याला PTRCचं पण
हेलो हेलो। अरे आवाज इतनी। हेलो। आ रहा है। It's really a proud moment to introduce today's speaker, Sri Janak Vaghani. He is a BCom chartered accountant practicing since 1985, mainly on sales tax, now in GST. He formed the LLP under the name and style of Messrs. BJU, an associate LLP, chartered accountant with other reputed CA practicing in the area of direct tax, including international taxation. Presently, present the paper at NRC, RRC, organized by various professional organizations. He has written books jointly with others on sales tax as well as works contracts published by various professional associations. He was a member of study groups of WRCA for publication of guide to VAT audit and issue on VAT audit published by WRC, and also publication on amnesty scheme of WRC with others members. He has contributed articles, column on sales tax in various tax journals, regularly giving lectures on sales tax, VAT, and GST in various public meetings, seminar, conferences, study circle meeting, guidance cell, and coaching classes organized by various professional and trade organizations. He was a chairman of Malad Chamber of Tax Consultants. He was a member of National Vice President, West Zone of ARTP. He was regularly making representation on the issue of GST and VAT before the government authorities through the GSTPAM and other professional associations. At present, he is a honorary consultant of various trade associations. He is a chairman of Joint Workshop Committee of our GSTPM. He is a member of National Executive Committee of Confederation of GST Practitioner and Industry. He is an invitee member of Managing Committee of GSTPM, Managing Committee of Malad Chamber of Tax Consultant, and a very active member of our subcommittee of various professional associations in Mumbai. ये उनका official introduction हो गया, but he is known. I know since I was in GSTPM since 95-96. He was known as a Curie Masters. That was the era of BST Act. In VAT also he was a Curie Masters, and now in GST also he is leading that front as a Curie Master. This is one of his peculiarity. Express. With this, I introduce today's speaker. Please give him loud applauses. Request our president to offer a
Janak told me don't offer me the memento of our bouquet, but I bring one in the respect of the solution. I will give the letter of the GST. Thank you.
या ये भी यूज कर सकते हैं, इससे भी जाएगा। नमस्कार, जय श्री कृष्ण, जय जिनेन्द्र, and जय GST, and of course जय GST. My dear friend, President Praveen Shinde, convener of the L&R committee, and office bearer of the association, and my dear friends, and of course to the Govind Bhai, is very close to me, And this not accepting the memento, I learned from Govind, and not wearing the coat and tie also from the Govind, because I believe that we are in India. Our culture is not to wear the coat and tie only when it is a formal process. When we are required to wear it before the tribunal or the court, otherwise no. And for this GSTPM 104, वो तो मेरा घर है. ये जो सीट पे मैं बैठा हूँ, मैं बोलता मैं तो रोज बैठता हूँ, आज ऑफिशियली बैठा हूँ. And this at this point I remember our J.R. Rawal, not our J.D. Rawal, but we had one J.R. Rawal, very long and stout fellow, tax practitioner. He used to come to the library only to meet the people. He didn't have any work after retirement. He didn't have any work, but he was coming here. And our great Suresh Sanghvi sir, he also used to come here to meet the people and not for the work. I think if we continue that tradition, then this library will be full of the people. And one of the object of our association is also fraternity. It's not only study part, but fraternity. And I also would like to thank the great I.R. Shah, past president. Because here there was a central table. Earlier we used to have. And he was sitting in that chair. And anybody who comes to the library, he was guiding them. And from that moment, we got a concept of guidance cell. Madhubai Shah Muchar, MB Shah, he floated that idea that we should have a formal guidance cell, and that was continued till lockdown. Why we have selected this topic? 2021, 21, 22 was the period of the lockdown. Number of things happened in this period. And it was a 3 years completion of the GST. There were a lot of representations to the government to mitigate the difficulties faced by the people. And they also learned from their experience, and they made the amendment to the GST. So I thought that we should discuss some of the important aspect of the amendment to the GST law, which would be useful in making representation before the audit and scrutiny of the return for this period. And some of them are useful for our past period also, because 1920, they are going to issue so-called notice before 30th April. So some of them are also useful for the prior period. But my focus is on this 2021 and 21-22. When we talk about the GST, we cannot forget the ITC. The discussion on the GST is incomplete if we don't discuss the ITC. When the VAT was in the drafting stage in 2000, I was given a charge to represent before the department, to make a represent before the department on the provisions and drafting of the VAT Act. I salute Dilip Dixit sir, then the deputy commissioner in charge for drafting the VAT law. He gave me so much laxity to make a representation before him when we had a very good, frank discussion about the provision along with our team of the law and representation. And my first representation was on the VAT law, except the name in the VAT law. No word VAT you find in the VAT Act. Why I was on that and why in GST? That VAT, they had issued a white paper on the VAT, which says that there are when in a valuation tax system, we have levy of tax on the valuation at each stage of sale. How to determine valuation? Reduce sales price method our rule 46 say in the VAT law. You take sale price, reduce purchase price on balance, you have to pay the VAT. 100 is your purchase price, 110 is your sale price, 110 minus 100, 10 pay tax per. Another method is you pay the tax on the sale price, you claim set off on purchases, on balance you pay the VAT. So in the VAT Act, they have adopted both the things for a limited period. In GST and in VAT also, we have got the judgment of the High Court and the Supreme Court that ITC is a charity. You cannot ask the ITC from the government. And I was objecting at that time, the ITC is a condition for computation of the value addition, and on that tax is payable. Now you will say under the GST law where it is written it is a value added tax. It is not in the act but on the council website. They have said what is GST is a value added tax system. So when the council has accepted the tax is a GST is a value added tax, then the one of the condition for the computation of the value added tax, ITC is must. Without ITC, you cannot calculate value addition. This is the fundamental principle of the value added tax system. Having this thing in mind, and our experience of the VAT law section 48.5, that unless the tax is paid on the earlier transaction, we don't get the set-off. The GST ITC mechanism was an improvement to section 48.5. How? That section 16 grants the ITC to us. There is no condition of the sale, as was in the VAT. Even inward supply used for the purpose of the business is also eligible for the set-off. This is a new thing for the persons who are doing practice other than the Maharashtra state. But in all other states under the VAT law, there was a condition of a sale for claiming the set-off. But in Maharashtra VAT, there was no such condition. And in GST, if you look at the section 16, entitlement to the ITC is not based on the condition of the sale. All the expenses which forms part of the valuation, you are getting the ITC. But one difference. Under the VAT law, we used to get the set-off in excess of 4%, 2% for the tax-free goods. Under the GST, it is not. But under the GST law, there is a one condition, section 16(2)(c), small c, that subject to section 41, the supplier should have paid the tax. That is the condition. Now, the officer in their show cause notice refers this provision ad verbatim. But they don't pay attention to the 16(2)(c) subject to section 41. What is section 41? It says provisional acceptance of the credit till ITC is matched as per section 42. What is section 42? Supplier furnishes the information of the outward supply in GST R1. We are used to that. Then, based on the GST R1 under section 38 of the GST Act, we were supposed to file GST R2. In GST R2, we were given right to add the invoices not reported by the supplier. Based on our information in GST R2, invoices, missed invoices. The communication was to be given to the supplier in GST and to them, and the supplier was to file GST R1A as per section 37 of the GST Act. And then this was matched. And when there is a matching is there, then the section 42 provides for the duplication of the ITC claim and the credit note effect, and then the communication was to be given to the supplier as well as the recipient for the missed invoices. When the supplier fails to correct the discrepancy, then you can go to the recipient. And section 42 into bracket 5 of the Act provides the liability to reverse the ITC in the case of the recipient only when the communication is given to the recipient that supplier has not corrected the discrepancy. So it would be added to your tax liability in the return following the month in which communication is given. So that is an improvement to the VAT law section 48.5. Law provides that there would be a first communication to the selling dealer for the missed invoices. It's not an undertaking or High Court or Supreme Court judgment. That is provided in the law. Problem कहाँ हो गया? R2 fail हो गया. And then they introduced the 3B. So there was a lot of litigations before the High Court and Supreme Court, up to Supreme Court, Bharti Airtel, Aap and Company, etc. In Bharti Airtel Company, government itself has stated that for claiming the ITC, you need not be dependent on GSTR 2A. You can claim the ITC as per the books of account. हमने कर दिया. अभी क्या? We are getting the notice that your ITC is not reflected in your 2A mismatch 3B. So you pay the tax. Under which provision of that? Neither it is written in 16(2)(c), nor in section 42, nor in section 41. Under which provision of the Act you are saying that I have to reverse the ITC for the mismatch? Even Rule 69 and 70 of the GST law provide that matching cannot be done unless GSTR 2 is introduced. And friends, section 38 was amended, substituted in October 2022. There is no retrospective amendment. So till October 2022, section 38 is in the statute book, section 42 is in statute book, and all the mechanism provisions are in statute. So 2A आया कभी? One 2022. For the first time, they introduced the condition in section 16 for reflecting the invoices in GSTR 2A. Then later it was 2B. So from January 2022, the condition of reflecting in the 2A was introduced. So we can, till then, we can argue out that there was no such condition for claim of the ITC by the recipient that his invoices should be reflected in GSTR 2. So that issue is that, can it be applied for any prior period? The condition of 2A can be inferred for the prior period? The answer is no. The amendment is prospective and not retrospective. And we have got a very good judgment, my favorite judgment, because my friends are studying that on the retrospective judgment amendment, inference of the retrospectivity, we have got a Supreme Court judgment for STC, Hussain Qasim Dada, that you cannot infer the retrospectivity in amending act. It should be specific, expressed. Here it is not so. There is also one rule of interpreter. Gajanan Khare is there. He knows much better than me, because he also says the judgment from the Supreme Court on this point, that when there is a subsequent amendment to the provision, that can be relied for interpretation that earlier period it was not there. See, subsequently section 16 is amended to insert a condition of 2A. That means prior to that it was not there. So till 1/1/2022, we have to ignore 2A. For 1/1/22, after that, we don't have any dispute. We have claim as per the 2A. So what about mismatch notice issued prior period? Simple. There is no condition. And you can rely for that whatever the provision is reproduced in the show cause notice. That you can reproduce that in your reply and say that which provision of the act you have relied for issue of the notice. Now, today morning only I was discussing with the Sonpal sir, who is a government advocate also and practicing privately also. He just raised this issue to me because Janak tell me that in what is the scope of section 73 and 74. Now we know that in GST there is no concept of assessment. Although people are saying assessment and for the topic matter, but there is no concept of assessment. It is akin to section 23(5) of the VAT law, issue-based notice. That under the GST law, during the scrutiny of the return, section 61, during the audit, section 65, investigation, search, inspection. If the department finds, just mind well, the department finds that there is a short payment of the tax or there is a non-payment of the tax or there is a wrong ITC availed and for this erroneous refund granted, then and then only so cause notice can be issued. Now, when we talk about wrong ITC availed, because that is for the purpose of section 16, then when I claim the ITC as per the books of account, where there is no condition of 2A, can you say for the purpose of section 73, it is a wrong ITC availed by me? It is a self-answer question. You need not any citation for that. If you want a citation, you can cite Supreme Court Bharati Airtel, where the department has demonstrated before the Supreme Court, ITC need not to be dependent on 2A. You can claim the ITC as based on your books of account. And Supreme Court accepted that. So according to me, in my humble opinion, that for all the proceedings initiated by the department till 1/1/2022, for mismatch of the ITC, it cannot be valid and not according to the provisions of the law. Then GSTR 2. उसका क्या? मान लो one fine morning Supreme Court directs the government that you introduce GSTR 2. Provision is there. They have not provided the due date. I still remember up to October 2019 or 20, they were issuing the notification for the providing the due date of the return. Initially October, December, January, February, and every time they say due date for filing of the GSTR 3 and 2 shall be notified later. बाद में उन लोगों ने बंद कर दिया उन्होंने, it will be notified. जब तक GSTR 2 नहीं आता तो क्या करेंगे? अगर लाया अभी तो then for the purpose of section 16(4), which is the due date of the return for ITC claim? GSTR 2. Because as per section 38, I have to show and tick invoice wise supply ITC eligible, partly eligible or not eligible. Had you seen GSTR to anybody? अब देख लेना 2 में था ये, and that was auto populated GSTR 3. Total ITC which you take eligible and partly eligible, that was auto populated GSTR 3. And then you were availing in GSTR. So now, for a moment, for an argument, if the government introduced GSTR 2, say now from July 2017, you have to file GSTR 2. आप बोलेंगे ऐसा होता है क्या? हुआ. अभी हम लोग को 2 दिन पहले नोटिस दिया कि जिसने 17 में 3B भरा हुआ है उसका टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम है, यू फाइल रीफाइल GSTR 3B. हमने सोचा नहीं था, हुआ टेक्निकल डिफेक्ट. अरे जिसको आपने बोला टेक्निकल डिफेक्ट, मेरा भी तो टेक्निकल डिफेक्ट हो सकता था ना नहीं क्लेम करने के लिए. तेरा खून खून, मेरा खून पानी. वॉटेड में भी हुआ ना. और टान 1 में भी क्या किया आपने? सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट के बाद में टान 1 का विंडो खोला. सो द मैटर इज बिफोर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट इन मृत्युंजय. And most likely the Supreme Court may say 16(4) is not proper. अभी आप बोलेंगे कि ठीक है जनक भाई, यू टॉक्ड अबाउट सेक्शन 16 वगैरह वगैरह, व्हाट अबाउट रूल 36(4)? वो कभी आया? अक्टूबर 19. So rule 36(4), unless you challenge, we have to follow. That will be from October 19. There were specified percentages for October 9th, October 19. Is not 1st October. How you will determine in 9th October 19 to December 19, you claim the invoices up to 120%. Then January 20 to December 20, 110, then January 21 to December 20, 105%. This is to be calculated for the return and not cumulative for the entire year. So up till now, till October 19, we were claiming the ITC based on our books of account. Now from the 9th October 2019, we have been asked to follow GSTR 2A, not your books of account. See the changes. So at least safely up to 9th October 2019, I was eligible to claim the ITC as per my books of account. Then March 20, हम लोगों ने ताली गंदी थाली बहुत बजाया. Lockdown. It was a nightmare for all of us. And thank God that we have survived that stage. And we all are here today. Changa panga, ekdam mast. And then in the lockdown, they issued an amendment to the Rule 36(4). And there is a circular is also there for that. So they say the condition of Rule 36(4) will apply cumulative for February, March, April, May, June, July, and August 20 returns, and to apply in September 20. So while filing the return for the September 20, you have to apply the Rule 36(4) for the period February, March of 2020, that is 1920, and 2021 April to September. So you take down your 2A of all this period and see that it exceeded the limit or not. The problem is बीच में 110% हो गया January 20 से. How to calculate? You say you apply the condition cumulatively. And in between you change the law. How do I calculate the rule 36(4) formula? 110%, 120% accordingly. No answer. I don't have any answer. And I'm not going to reply that. Let the department to clarify where I was wrong in claiming the ITC, because it is their duty to say that you are wrongly avail ITC in respect of this return, not yearly basis. वो कहां से निकालेगा? मेरे पास ITC का डिटेल्स उसके पास है ही नहीं. And they are issuing the notice for the scrutiny of the return. On what basis? If you wanted to notice the discrepancy, because if you read the notice SMD 10, they say that while during the scrutiny of the return, we found following discrepancy. Now, when you compare the 3A, 3B, and the 2A and 3B, on what basis you say that there is a discrepancy unless I give the details of the ITC claim by me in the 3B? It can't be. So then we have to reply that you kindly produce the details and the material in which return I have claimed the ITC wrongly within the meaning of section 73. Then April, May, and June 21. In June 21 return, because that was the second wave of the lockdown. Now, for this purpose, one can refer the circular number 193 of 2023, dated 17 July 2020. That how to apply this condition of the Rule 36(4). It says that you worked out this separately for this bunch of the period. And then the department, you means department, they have to work out and then say that following ITC, invoices ITC, your claim in excess. Now, if I have not followed this procedure and claim today, and the ITC is reflected in two of the earlier subsequent period, then what? 2A में तो आ गया. So I fulfilled the condition till January 2022. So Rule 36(4) is to be read down in that fashion. But department cannot, it will be up to the tribunal or the High Court. And there is also an issue about Rule 36(4), the validity of Rule 36(4). Because that was, they brought the power from the section 43A of the GST law, which had not seen the day of the light. So when the section is not in operation, rule cannot be in operation. But that is another debate. We have discussed a lot about the ITC. I will stop here. Then Rule 21A, returns for the period during the period of suspension of a registration. This provision was introduced in 2020. For the first time, the provision for suspension was introduced. The idea was that when we apply for the cancellation, they were doing cancellation after 2 months or 3 months. So for that purpose, they introduced the provision of suspension, that during the period of the suspension, you are not required to file the return. You cannot file the return during the period of suspension. Then when should I file the return? When should I file the return? That is provided in Rule 21A. The Rule 21(3) provides that the person whose registration is suspended shall not make any taxable supply. There is a one issue is there are the two issues in suspension. Shall not make any taxable supply, and the external bit clarifies the said term to mean that he shall not issue any tax invoice and accordingly shall not collect tax during the period of suspension. So when your registration certificate is suspended, then you cannot make taxable supply. That means you can do the B2C supply, but you cannot issue B2B invoices and collect the tax. Question of payment of tax does not arise because you are not required to file the return during the period of suspension. Then when I am required to file the return, and what about the transactions made to the B2B? Then the law provides, sub-rule 5. After revocation of suspension of registration, that provision of Rule 31(3)(a), Section 31(3)(a) and Section 40 shall apply. What is that? Issue of the revised invoices within 30 days from the revocation of suspension. And in Section 40 provides the false return. So in the false return, you are supposed to declare the transaction effected during the period of suspension. That is the law. Now, when you issue the revised invoices, it would be after the period of the suspension, and the recipient can claim the ITC based on the revised, and it would be reflected in the 2A also. How many of us has followed this? You followed, huh? You'll get award. Whatever it may be, you followed that, no? That's better. Now, when the supplier has not followed this thing, and legally it should be like that, then what will happen? That not, I'm not going to reply, but that you have to keep in mind. मेरा आज का काम तो आपको खाली प्रोविजन दिखाने का है, आईना. Then very important, returns for the period of cancellation of the registration, Rule 23. This was a few months back talk of the town. In this service sale meeting, the commissioner had come here. They had issued the circular for the revocation of cancellation. And they say you pay the tax for the period after the date of cancellation. In the service sale, they have stated so. But in the circular, it was not that. They had issued the circular, internal circular 06A, I think I have mentioned 06A of 2022. 6A, 6th March 2022. And they have explained beautifully the due date of filing of the return during the period of the cancellation. That is from the date of cancellation to the date of revocation of cancellation. They have given an example also. I will not take your time for that. It is within 30 days from the date of revocation of cancellation. So for the purpose of section 16(4), what should be the due date? Due date as provided in Rule 23. And in the lockdown, number of registration were cancelled by the department. And in the amnesty period in 2023-24, their number was restored. And in that case, if the department wanted to invoke section 16(4) for the period 21-22, whatever it period, we can say that for the purpose of section 16(4), the due date is not what you have provided, but as per Rule 23. Then, if it happens after 30th November, because section 16(4) is amended, Earlier it was due date of the return for the September, following the next year. Now it is 30th November of the following year. If after that date my number is restored, then 30th November of which year is to be taken? Accordingly, it should be the 30th November of the next year, of the year in which number is restored. Then what about recipient? उसका तो सब गया. Suspension में they have allowed us to issue a revised invoice. But in case of the recipient, during this period, what will happen? 16/4 चला गया, 2A मैंने, I could not claim ITC. Then in that case also the court may interpret 16/4 liberally, so that 30th November would be of the next year and not the prior period. That is possible to argue. Department tak to GST tribunal tak bhi, I don't think you will get the relief. You may have to file writ petition, which I have in the process to file before the Gujarat High Court. The same story. Number was cancelled in October 19. आज तक restore नहीं हुआ. Because he did not apply for the amnesty because the person was expired. So legal heir could not apply for the revocation of the cancellation for the deceased person. Appeal filed by the legal heir was dismissed beyond time limit. So now we are fighting that matter. There is one more issue, maybe applicable to some cases, not all. Separate registration by IRP. Now you know that under the company law, that if the company goes into liquidation or the company fails to pay under the insurance and bankruptcy code, the matter has to be subjudiced. And once the process is there, started, then they appoint the insurance resolution, interim resolution professional IRP. Now, what department was doing that when the matter is before the NCLT subjudiced liquidation, then that IRP is not required to file the return prior to the date of his appointment. I am surprised. Because under the company law, when the liquidator is appointed, then the liquidator is duty bound to comply the provisions of under the various law. But under the Insurance and Bankruptcy Code IBC, they say IRP is not required to comply the provisions of the GST law. So the department at issues. That is how you see what is happening. That is for the recovery action. My point is different. Then there is a notification of the 1120 and 21/320 allows him to apply registration separate. And he will be responsible for complying with the GST provision thereafter. But then there was a due date was there for within 30 days you have to make an application for registration. Till the IRP makes an application, if you have supplied any invoices, supplied the goods, services, goods to him, then he can claim the ITC for that period of 30 days till he applies for registration and without the condition of 2A, without condition of rule 36(4) for that limited period. वो लायक कहां से? अगर IRP को आप within 30 days you are allowing to claim ITC, उसका तो 2A आ ही नहीं सकता है क्योंकि उसके पास तभी नंबर ही नहीं था. So why not to other people? So that means you are interpreting the liberal interpretation. Then why not for others? This is subject to condition of section 16 and 36(4). But then during the period of their registration, before registration, how one can file the B2B invoices? Then in that case, you might have used the GST number of the erstwhile company. Then 2A would be there. But 2A would be in case of the erstwhile company GST number, not of the IR. So that is one thing of the IRP, but there is a great problem for the IRP or these NCLT people, that their number was suspended by the department. Now nobody goes and restores that number. The GST portal interprets in its own way. Luckily, yesterday they interpreted in our favor. Sometimes miracle happens. Now, when we were arguing for the transfer matter, the GSTN was telling us that we have got the data of the logbook of the computer, our computer, who applied for the transfer and could not do so. When we are telling that your site is not working, they say, you give me the data. Check your logbook. How many people tried to file the return and could not file it? It is there before you. No, वहां पे नहीं. Then we have to retweet. But tweet किसको करें? Fortunately, because of our representation by the association, it went to the ear of the GSTN people. कल तो छुट्टी था ना. फिर भी our department state commissioner took a pain and communicated with the GSTN. I received the message from the Narayan sir. He said that I have already informed and BM Gore sir also. I must thank both of the officers. In a holiday also they took a pain to communicate to the respective persons for resolving the issue. Then there was a small issue of the interest payment. It's a very interesting story. Section 50 has a checkered history. Whether interest is to be payable on the gross tax or net amount of the tax. That was a debate. We were following the Supreme Court judgment, IET, etc. Madras High Court in the refab said ITC interest cannot be levied on the gross amount of the tax payable, because in the rule they say that while filing the return GST or return 3B, the liability will be discharged by utilization of ITC credit or the cash ledger as the case may. But in section 49 of the Act, which provides for the payment of the tax, and payment of the tax has to be made to the Reserve Bank of India through our bank, nationalized bank. We have got a judgment under the sales tax law. Landesab might be knowing that government, RBI is acting as a treasury of the government. It is an agent of the government, not my agent. So when we deposit the tax to the government treasury, it is deemed to have been received by them on the date of the payment, not the cash ledger. That is another controversy. But when under the law I am utilizing the tax payment by credit balance in my ITC credit ledger, can you charge the interest for that amount? Our State Department was of the opinion it cannot be, because we were following the VAT provision. And the Central Department said no gross payment, not a rent payment. Then the GST Council made an amendment to the section 50. They brought 3 times amendment to section 50. Meanwhile, Maharashtra government issued an ordinance amending section 50. And now the story is that section 50 is amended from a retrospective period, 1/7/2017. What is it? Interest is payable on late filing of return only on cash component used for the payment of the tax. Mind the late filing of the return. not the late payment of the tax. I'm coming to that next part. In other words, no interest is payable on the amount of tax payable by utilizing balance as per ITC credit ledger. If the return is filed after the commencement of proceeding of under section 70 or 74, then this concession is not applicable. However, when tax is not payable on any outward supply in the return period in which tax was payable, say in the March 2024 return, you have not paid the tax in respect of the March sale, but you pay in September, then this provision is not applicable. That is provided in 52. Rule 52 also. When tax is not payable on any outward supply in the return period in which tax was payable but paid with other return period, then interest will be payable on the full amount of tax payable, even though it was paid by utilizing the ITC. This is the law. Section 50 and the rule also thereafter. I think rule 50 not that. It is a section 52. Please correct it. Because there is a rule 88 B in that respect. 88B is there. That also equals the same thing. Then when I am talking about the interest payment, don't forget the notification issued during the COVID period for reduction of the interest rate. First 15 days nil and 9%, what it may be. If you want the exact details, it is there in our referencer. So buy our referencer for the next year. If you are not bought. मार्केटिंग तो करना पड़ेगा ना, इधर बैठा हूं मैं. I mean, it's a beautiful compilation of the provisions by our team right from the BST Act. And also refer circular 141 of 2020 also. Then the today's talk of the town, section 168A. During the COVID lockdown period, they brought section 168A by of ordinance, giving power to the government with the recommendation of the GST. Recommendation का भी एक अलग स्टोरी है, वो बाद में कभी बोलेंगे उसके कि आज वो कल का नोटिफिकेशन याद करेगा तो काउंसिल तक तो मीटिंग हुआ नहीं है, तो कहां से बोला ऑन द रिकॉर्ड ऑफ जीएसटी काउंसिल आई एक्सटेंड द डेट, वो बाद में रेटिफाई होता है. Now 168A was introduced only for providing the measures of relief for extending the time limit. Now I have marked with the bold letter, issue the notification which cannot be completed or complied with. Complied with means by the taxpayer. When I cannot comply the provision of law because of the lockdown, then the government has power to extend the time limit. And they've issued the notification from time to time. But what about now? अभी COVID नहीं है. Then also they have issued the notification extending the time limit for what 17, 18 and 18, 19 and 19, 20 also. 19, 20 is July date. Now so April is the date for the issue of the so cause notice. Validity of that notification itself is debatable, because it can be issued only in the case of war. Election is not a war. Epidemic, that is our COVID-19. Flood, drought, fire, cyclone, earthquake, or any other calamity caused by the nature or otherwise affecting the implementation of any of the provisions of the Act. So one issue is that the present notification issued by the government extending the time limit, whether it is a valid as per the law or not, the GST department, including tribunal, will not answer this. They don't have power to decide. go to the court. Gujarat High Court has already admitted the writ petition on this issue. Then talk of the town. आज ही पेपर में आया. One person has duped 15,000 crore rupees ITC by various company 35, more than 35. I was once in a meeting, I was discussing BC Joshi sir of the बड़े sir. बोले कि वाघानी तुम जीएसटी वैट की क्यों बात कर रहे हो? वो 1959 में भी था बोगस बिलिंग. It was there in 1959. So it is not a today story, it was there. So whenever there is a tax provision, you will find some tax evasion. But here in GST, what had happened? Even under the VAT law also it was happened somewhere. And the CBIC on a representation, because in one of the occasion I discussed with the Siddhant Ranka, advocate of the Rajasthan High Court, he was appearing for the government on that matter. So I wanted article from him for the All India Federation. He says, I cannot give you the article because I am appearing for the government of Rajasthan, government in the High Court. But he said, your point is well taken. That when there are a circular sale, A sells to B, B to C, C to D, and then D to A, or D may not do anything. Then whether the government is justified in reversing the ITC in each and every case, A, B, C, D, so that means you are levying the GST 4 times. So that matter was represented by many people. Of course, our association had not represented on the fact issue because we have taken a decision not to give representatives on the fact matter. Let these people to do that. But that was also a debate before the government, and the issued the circular 171/03/2022 dated 6th July 2022 to clarify certain issues relating to that. Clarification number 1, मैंने शॉर्ट में लिखा, बड़ा सब है कि when A has issued the invoices to B, then what will happen? So in case of A, no liability because he has not supplied the goods or services. कुछ आया दिमाग में? अरे जब मैं बोलूंगा मैंने बिल दिया है, मैंने सप्लाइड सर्विसेज नहीं किया, तो मेरे को टैक्स क्यों लगा रहे हो? Why 70 is invoked against me non-payment of the tax? But in our VAT law, sales tax tribunal has given a decision against us. I think it was Devi Dayal, one company, and recently one judgment is there. Where in the case of the assessment of Hawala dealer, he says, I have issued the invoice, not supplied the goods. Then the tribunal says, okay, when you have issued the invoices, record in your books of account, payment is also made, then you cannot say that I have not supplied the goods. Let department say you have not supplied the goods. That is the tribunal judgment. And now here they say, they have presumed that I have not supplied the goods. Because I gave the affidavit. मैंने कुछ नहीं किया, वो तो उसने किया. So in your case, no tax is payable. One should challenge this. You are encouraging the tax evader. He has collected the tax, he has recorded in the books of account, and he might have deducted income tax also. Because he is not required to pay the tax, he doesn't want to pay the tax, you say, I will not record the tax from him. Let there be a proof that it was an issue of the invoices without supply of the goods. It can't be straight away. आप जाके बोलो, साहब मैं एफिडेविट दे देता हूं, मेरा टैक्स मत भरना, करेगा? एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते वो लोग. Then no liability under section 70 nor under section 74 and OA. तो A को क्या करने का? Penalty under section 122(1)(2) for issue of invoice without supply of goods or services. you can fight out for the penalty. But no liability. You can penalty pay, penalty, tax plus interest plus penalty नहीं है. Only penalty है. And when you file the bill, you don't have to make any pre-deposit. तो GST ट्रिब्यूनल आएगा तब तक हम सोते रहेंगे. Then clarification 2. A has issued the tax invoice to another register B without any underlying supply goods. B avails the input tax credit and B further issues invoices along with underlying supply of the goods both and utilize the ITC availed on the basis of the so and so. Now what is the liability of the B? B is not hawala dealer. B has supplied the invoices properly with the supply of the goods or services. So in the B's case, he has availed the wrong ITC. So he would be liable to reverse the ITC with payment of interest and penalty. 3 is very important. Yeah. That I don't say, circular says. तो B का दिया ना second clarification. तो वहां पे प्रॉब्लम नहीं है ना because but then आप जल्दी बस तीसरा केस पे आ रहे हैं सीधे थोड़ा सा आपने जल्दबाजी कर दी. Now the third scenario says A to B and B to C. जैसे आपने बताया. A and B both are involved in the supply of the fake invoices. That is what happened majority in the market. So whether B will be liable or not. A का तो हमने बोल दिया A is not liable. B का भी बोला not liable. B is also not liable to pay the tax. So from whom the tax would be recovered? The actual beneficiary of the transaction. So that was the ultimate user. In that case, the ITC would be required to be reversed not between A, B, and C. Now, why this sequence is very important? They are invoking the arrest provision. Now, arrest provision that is a 5 crore tax liability, not the penalty. So when A and B cases, according to me, there can't be any arrest. There could be a prosecution on the other provisions of that for issuing the fake invoices or collecting the tax and not paying the tax, etc., etc. And they say that circular says that B in this case liable for the penalty for passing the invoices and etc., etc., but no tax liability in case of the B. So in the issues of the fake invoices, you have to find out where you stand, A, B, or C. Accordingly, you have to place your matter before the authority. Now, in the state survey, it is very important, this paragraph. Generally, when we refer the circular, the department says where it is written, your case doesn't go in ABC. Then the same LOC shall be applied for other cases. So clarify that any person who has retained the benefit of transactions specified in subsection 121A and whose instance such standards are concluded shall also be liable for the penal action under the provision of the state. I think if I got 5 minutes, President sir, then I will continue the another because it is not here, but liquidated damages. That is the 178 circular. I think I mean just check it that circular. Now in that circular, they have clarified the liability of the person for the receipt of the penalty for non-fulfillment of contractual obligation. Under the service tax, this was a classification of service. Doing something, agreeing to do something, agreeing not to do something, or agreeing refraining from doing. Now, these words were also from the Contract Act. Mainly, it was the Immoral Property Act. When I'm an owner of a common plot, and I sell one plot, and I sell the backside of the plot to Mr. A. Now, if the Mr. A wants to be owner of that plot, he wants to utilize it, then what will happen? He has to take a consent that I have to give him the access to that approach. So that is agreeing to tolerate something. आपके प्रॉपर्टी में आप उसको रास्ता दे रहे, so agreeing to tolerate and agreeing to refrain. When I enter into a transfer of my business profession to Mr. A, I can do the business later on. So then I said that I will not do the business for a certain period. It can't be for a longer period, so permanently. So that is agreeing not to do. These are the examples, but it should be for a consideration. Now the department, what they used to do in each and every case, they say you have agreed, you have tolerated. अरे भाई penalty में इसलिए भर रहा हूँ कि he has not tolerated. When there is a delay in the work, and there is a provision for the penalty by the government department, then amount of the penalty is not for tolerating, but they have not tolerated, therefore they impose the penalty. It is a penalty, is not a consideration for that. So under the service tax, we had a lot of judgment by the state, Eastern Coalfield and etc. Now not required, because this circular you can cite. They have given an example of the various cases. In which case it will be taxable, in which case it will not be. I will not take your time, but that circular is there. And don't try to Google for finding of the circular. Apna GST review mein sab hai. So if anybody has not subscribed for the GST review, again, go and subscribe for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janak, for guiding us. Anyone has a query online? Request Jyotika to take the online query first. If there is no everyone has understood book of things. Thank you. Janak Bhai. Janak Bhai का हास्य देखे लाइब्रेरी में आ जाओ तो सब गाइडेंस से लोग का करते हैं रामजी भाई का अंतिम हमारे कैमरा का बाविस नेता है तो लोग केवल अंतर है अलग अलग तो अभी जनक भाई ने इनिशियली जो काम किया है कि यहाँ पे आने का मिलने के लिए आने का तो योजना में सचिन का पास से सीधा है कैसे गया है तो इतना बात को सिंधु में जाएगा मिलने के लिए हाँ उनका काम चालू है कि और भी चालू है 3 बजे के बाद आई रिक्वेस्ट जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी सत्यानंद कन्या सुनील जोशी सर वो प्रपोज आदि ऑर्डर टाइम जनक भाई होता है एक मिनट
Thank you very much, Janak sir. This is the first time I am hearing you personally. The name itself is Janak, I feel the way you talk, जिस तरह से आपने आंसर दिया है ना, आप क्वेश्चन में आंसर में क्वेश्चन ढूंढते हो, उसमें मेरे को सस्पेंशन में बोला मेरे में ऐसा था कि मेरा 1.5 करोड़ रुपया नीचे टर्नओवर था एक बंदे का, तो वो एक्चुअली 2019-20 में वो आया, फिर उसका मंथली सेलेक्ट हुआ, तो बट 1.5 करोड़ के नीचे था, तो मैंने मंथली नहीं फाइल किया, उसको क्वार्टरली फाइल किया। ओके, तो लेट फी जो है मैंने मतलब अप्रैल में नील फाइल किया और जून में उसको दिखाया टर्नओवर। ओके, तो मेरा लेट फी 50,000 रुपीज बच गया। ओके, और इवन मैंने रिफंड भी अप्लाई किया कैश में, रिफंड भी आ गया। वेदर वो मेरे को फ्यूचर में जाके आ सकता है, अगर आता है तो कैसे उसको रिप्लाई करें कि वो मेरा, बिकॉज आपने सस्पेंशन किया था, मेरा क्वार्टरली नहीं फाइल होगा, बट आप अलाउ नहीं करते, जैसे आपने बोला कि वो एक रिवोकेशन जब होता है उसके 30 डेज के बाद में आप कर सकते हो, उसी तरह कैन बी चैलेंज कि वो अगर मेरा क्वार्टरली आता है, मंथली आपने बोला है तो एज पर द पोर्टल, बट मैंने क्वार्टरली फाइल किया, बिकॉज वो अलाउ नहीं करा था तो उस टाइम पे चेंज करें, अगर मेरा टाइम पे हुआ क्वार्टरली को किया होगा।
So your question is that you will require to file a monthly return, but you file quarterly. Correct? Quarter allow नहीं करना ना आपको.
No, but I have my all April का नील, May का नील, और I have shown the June में उसको टर्नओवर दिखाया, April में June का।
वो देखिए मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ. So there are the two issues. One is that return filing periodicity is not determined by the portal. By the portal. So when the portal is allowed to file the return, then there is no question of late fee and excess. Now you did not report a turnover in April and May. So therefore you have delayed your tax liability to the June. All that interest can be there.
Yes. Understood.
But and one thing also, that there is no provision under the GST law for creating a demand for the late fees. वो पोर्टल कर रहा है 73-74 में लेट फी का शब्द ही नहीं।
कुछ जगह 500 ही भरा, अदरवाइज उनको 5,000 भरना पड़ता। मेरा 5,000
अभी इसके ऊपर ज्यादा बहस मत करो। उसके ऊपर बहस मत करो, हो गया ना हो गया, चलो छोड़ो।
अरे चलना मत Thank you, person. Hello. Hello, hello.
In today, like there are more than around 90 participants online. Yes,
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also view, one can easily make out of the popularity of the Janak Bhai regarding the GST and its command over the subject. I think even the GST, the department says my game, my rules. Janak Bhai can still defeat them with their game and their rules by minutely observing their circulars and their notifications. I thank on behalf of GSTPAM and LNR committee of the GSTPAM to Janak Bhai for his excellent presentation. I think she has asked me for to check for the queries. Only the words of praises are there, nothing else. Thank you, Janak Bhai, and I thank all the participants who are offering as well as highest number of online physical participation for this study circle. Thank you, everybody. Please write some question. अधिनायक जय है भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जनदी तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाये तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय